So the Jacques Yves line from Fragrance World, I have gone over another fragrance in this particular line, which was the clone of Ombre Nomad, the Soleil de Ombre. And I definitely was pretty underwhelmed by how that fragrance smelled in comparison to Ombre Nomad. Even though that fragrance was, in my opinion, a little bit more wearable than Ombre Nomad was, it definitely was a completely different scent. So I definitely was kind of skeptical to see how close this would actually come to L'Immensite. And definitely I was absolutely surprised by how close this was. All right. So as you can see, this is the presentation for the fragrance here. You've got L'Infinite and then Jacques Yves right here. You've got the sort of Jacques Yves logo down here at the bottom, along with the concentration and the bottle size. And then you kind of have like this sort of fake little like Louis Vuitton, I guess, knockoff design or whatever with the Jacques Yves logo. So you've got that on both sides. Fragrance World logo up top here. All right, and then you've got the ingredients and barcode and stuff like that on the back. And then you've got the manufacture date and stuff like that on the bottom, which this one was manufactured in December of this year. So this is a pretty new bottle that I have here. And also the Fragrance World Authenticity sticker on the back. And then just like with, pretty much all of the other sort of Louis Vuitton, clone bottles, this one pretty much, it looks just like most of them do. You've got the L'Infinite Jacques Yves and the Jacques Yves logo right here. The cap is not magnetic, but it does snap on there pretty good. So you can definitely pick this bottle up by the cap. And then you've got like a little Fragrance World logo down here at the bottom. As far as the atomizer goes, I mean, I would say it's pretty average. It's not a bad atomizer, but it's not one of the best, I would say. All right. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do here is just pretty much spray the L'Immensite, which is what this fragrance is cloning, on my left hand here. And then I'm gonna spray this on my right, the L'Infinite. Gonna kind of air them out a bit, and then let's go right in. All right, so right off the bat, I would say that the L'Infinite, it does have a slightly heavier sort of alcohol blast, than what the Louis Vuitton does. Obviously, when you're paying, over $300 for a fragrance, you're not gonna get any sort of alcohol blast. So with this one being, I believe, about $36 on VanityFragrance.com, then, obviously you can expect to get some sort of alcohol, but that dies down pretty much immediately. Like now at this point, I can't smell any sort of alcohol. And what I will say is, at least in the opening, I would say there is a slight bit more sort of crispness, I would say, from the Louis Vuitton than what I'm getting from the Jacques Yves, in terms of like the citruses and the ginger. It is slightly more crisper, just a tad bit brighter, but I mean, this is it's very minimal. I would say less than like a 5% difference, pretty much. Yeah, I would say probably about 3 to 4% difference for the most part. But just in terms of the overall smell, I would say they are extremely close here in the opening. Now, the main thing that I noticed when wearing the two fragrances was this definitely, it transitions pretty much the same way that the Louis Vuitton does, in terms of how it kind of transitions from like the opening to the mid notes. And then even like once you get into the dry down of the fragrance, this is, I would say so far, the most accurate clone that I've smelled of L'Immensite. Definitely, I would say more accurate than Jean Low Immortal. The main thing I feel like with Jean Low Immortal is Jean Low Immortal, I think purposely is not trying to necessarily be like a one-to-one clone of the, Louis Vuitton L'immensite. I believe the way that fragrance is made up, it's meant to be kind of like a more sort of spicier, more so kind of like in your face and aggressive version of Louis Vuitton's L'immensite. That one definitely, it has, in my opinion, more of an emphasis on sort of like ginger. So it definitely comes off more spicier. And it definitely is, a lot louder and more abrasive, in my opinion, than what L'immensite is. Jacques Yves, I would say, is also more accurate than the Flavia L'Impression. All right. So I know some people kind of disagree with me on how close this is to the original L'immensite. In my opinion, this is, before I smelled this was definitely the closer, fragrance to L'immensite than what Jean Low Immortal was. So this, I would say, definitely is a lot better than what this is, especially once you get into the dry down. I feel like the dry down is where this one kind of started to fall apart and kind of, veer off. I feel like the quality difference is where you really sort of noticed it, in this fragrance. Whereas with this one, even in, into the far dry down, once you're, like 5-6 hours into the fragrance, this one still holds up to how the Louis Vuitton smells. Now, both fragrances overall pretty much are really kind of like watery, sort of like herbal, soft fragrances, and I'm talking about the L'Infinite and the original Louis Vuitton. That's the vibe that you get from the two fragrances. You do sort of get that from the L'Impression. I would say for the most part, you don't get that as much with the Jean Low Immortal fragrance. Now, in terms of the like performance and stuff like that, I'm just going to kind of give, I guess, a brief sort of performance overview as far as what I've gotten over like the last couple of days that I've had this fragrance. Now, obviously, again, this fragrance was manufactured this month, so it's not even a month old in terms of when it was produced, and I've only had it a couple of days. So performance, speaking about that right now, I would say is pretty much irrelevant at this point because, with most fragrance world fragrances, as you sort of let them sit over time, especially if you get them right after they've been released, they do start to change in terms of performance and even sometimes in terms of, the smell. So maybe in 2 or 3 months, this may be completely identical to the Louis Vuitton, and it may give me 10 plus hours of performance. I'm not sure. But in terms of the performance right now, I would say I'm getting about 6 to 7 hours pretty much of, overall longevity. And I would say in terms of the projection, at least for about the first hour and a half or so, this does seem to be slightly stronger than the Louis Vuitton. Now, it's not a situation where like it has, I guess, like a stronger emphasis on like certain notes than what the Louis Vuitton does, like how the Jean Low Immortal does. I would say this pretty much, it smells for the most part the same as the Louis Vuitton. The only difference is I feel like it does have a little bit more push when it comes to the projection for like the first hour and a half or so than what the Louis Vuitton does. And then pretty much after that, I would say it is pretty much on par for the most part with the Louis Vuitton after that. And I would say the Louis Vuitton beats it out just slightly, I would say, in terms of like the overall longevity. For the most part, I get about, 7.5 to 8 hours or so with the Louis Vuitton L'immensite. So at least right now, this is, very close, even in terms of the overall longevity to the Louis Vuitton. So that is a very promising, trait, I would say, about this fragrance so far. Because again, this bottle is not even a month old. So I would say probably by the time it starts to warm up outside, this will be fully maturated. and more than likely this will be even better than what it is right now. So I would definitely say, you know, before the hype starts to really, you know, go up in regards to this fragrance, I would absolutely recommend that you go on banadierfragrance.com and pick this fragrance up. Right now, Salim, I think, is the only person who has this fragrance. So I would say definitely go and pick this up. You can use my discount code VegasSense10 to get 10% off. And yeah, man, definitely. I really enjoy wearing this fragrance. I really do. Now, if you're somebody who, especially if you've smelled the Jean Lo Immortal and you smelled the Louis Vuitton L'immensite, and you actually prefer the way that Jean Lo Immortal smells, you know, just in terms of how strong that fragrance is, and you know, I would say the extra emphasis on like that sort of extra spiciness from the ginger, then I would say probably stick with the Jean Lo Immortal, you know. And if you run out of that bottle, then, you know, maybe try to find someone who's selling it secondhand to get a slight discount on it, or pay the overinflated prices for it once it becomes available again. But I would say if you're somebody who wants to smell as close as possible to Louis Vuitton's L'immensite, and obviously you don't want to pay like the $320 that a full bottle of that goes for, then this is absolutely a great choice. I would say it absolutely is. So definitely, man, let me know in the comments what you all thought about this particular video. Let me know if you smelled the L'Infinite from Jacques Yves. Also, have you smelled the original Louis Vuitton L'immensite? And do you agree with me in terms of how close this actually comes to the original Louis Vuitton fragrance? All right. So definitely let me know again in the comments. And if you're brand new to the channel, do me a favor, go ahead and subscribe. And once again, that's Jamar from Vegas Sense. I'll see you on the next video.